everyone to another live Q&A. So excited to be here with Dale. Welcome, Dale. Thanks for joining us.
I'm so glad to be back, Tara. It's been a long time. Thank you for having me.
I know. We should have had you sooner. My apologies for the swift delay, but we have so much to catch up on that we can just chin wag for a whole hour.
Chin wag. Oh my gosh. Thanks. It makes me think of my buddy Mark Leslie Lefebvre says chin wag sometimes, and I freaking love that phrase. I'm adopting it. It's mine.
I know. I forgot that it actually doesn't really translate into. Sometimes my European colleagues will not understand what I'm referring to, and I was like, "No, we just chat. It's just a chitter chatter." Like so.
Wagging my chin. How dare you?
But welcome to everyone that's joining us live. If you want to let us know in the chat where you're coming from, that would be awesome. Toronto is coming out of a heat wave, which is nice, but we're having a beautiful summer. And Dale, I forget where you're based out of.
I'm outside of Central Ohio here in Columbus,
Nice.
Ohio.
Are you having a little heat wave too?
It's a bit warm. I've just pretty much stayed indoors, locked myself here in my studio, and just got to work and just hope that it just lightens up a little bit.
Nice. Well, we have a lot to get through, and if you have any questions throughout the chat, let us know, and we'll try and get to them. I'll try and pick and choose them as we go through. We have people coming in from New York City, Peter from Ireland, hello, I'm going to Ireland next week. That's exciting. Port Stanley in Ontario. Let us know where you're coming from. And Dale, I'll read your bio if you'll indulge me for people that aren't familiar. So Dale L. Roberts is an accomplished indie author and host of Self-Publishing with Dale on YouTube, where he actively debunks various myths surrounding the indie publishing industry. Dale aims to provide factual information and practical advice to help authors navigate the self-publishing journey more effectively. We're so happy to have you today. And for anyone who isn't familiar, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the indie publishing industry?
Isn't it crazy that it has been over a decade that I've been in this business? I'm just blown away that I've been a full-time author since September of 2014. I actually left a very nice job as an activities director at a senior living community. I was essentially paid to play with senior citizens. It was an awesome job. I am not going to lie. It was tons of fun, but not quite as fun as being an author. But it took me about a couple of years. I struggled. I got a mentor to help me get through it. And I saw my big breakthrough early 2016. And the rest has been incredible. It's been a really great ride along the way. I went from being a fitness author to someone talking about writing and self-publishing on YouTube. And here I am now on Kobo Writing live stream. So.
Wow, 10 years of full-time authoring. That's quite the accomplishment. I hope you threw yourself a party.
I've thrown myself numerous parties.
Great. Good.
Never lacking on the parties for sure.
Nice. Well, today we want to talk about some myths around self-publishing and hopefully debunk some or maybe give advice to authors who are maybe curious about the indie publishing industry, or those who have been in it for a while and are curious about the state of it now, as it is an industry that changes quite quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what are some of the most common myths that you encounter from new authors, do you think?
Let's get the biggest one out the way. And I think, Tara, you can agree with me on this one here, that just simply writing a great book is going to make you successful. And the unfortunate thing is just simply writing a great book does not sell books. Yeah, someone might buy that book and go, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing. But if they only have a couple of friends and those friends don't resonate, that's when it just chops off. There's no ripple effect. And there might be some outliers out there. There's going to be just a random person who can be able to get away with that. But the vast majority of us, 99.9% of authors, need to understand that just simply writing a great book is not marketing that book. You need to market and promote that book, because otherwise no one knows it exists.
Yeah, I think that's something to definitely keep in mind, especially with indie publishing. You have to consider the business of being a writer. So I guess it's very hard you want to work on your craft and hone writing a great book with learning all of the business pieces. So yeah, I think that's a good one for the first time. How would you balance it? Like, did you write your first book and publish it right away, or did you write a few? What do you think for authors now is a better tactic?
Well, when my first book, yeah, I was flying blind. I had no idea the state of self-publishing when I got into it. All I did was scratch an itch, and I didn't understand that because I still had that belief back then
Mhm.
of I'm going to write this, it's going to be amazing, and people are going to buy it by the truckload. Like there was no marketing and promotional plans. For me, it all starts before I even put virtual pen to paper. I'm thinking about, okay, is this marketable? Is this viable on the marketplace today? Or is this just going to tank? Because I don't want to be writing a book and sharing it to a crowd of none. Because if
Mhm.
there's no interest in it, what's the point in going through all of that? Yeah, sure, we could say for the art and for the craft of writing, but at the end of the day, if you're looking to pay your bills, like I do, I'm looking at what does the market want? What is the demand for something like this? So that's typically how I'm looking at it. And the next thing is like, what am I going to do after I have written this book? I've gotten it fully formatted. I've got it looking good. It's got a great book cover, book description, all that stuff. What am I going to do after? How am I going to continue to get enough eyeballs on my book so that way I can start selling more and more and more and consistently? So that way, well, I pay those pesky things that come in the mail called bills. I mean, am I right?
I think one of the myths is that there is a belief that you have to spend a lot on advertising to sell books. I mean, I guess the question is this a myth? Like, what are your thoughts on that, especially if you're considering marketing your first book or maybe first handful of books that you've written?
What I would say is only spend what you're willing to lose.
Mm.
And I know that that sounds like, oh my gosh, well, hang on. I've been told that I've got to spend money to make money. Yeah, to a certain extent, have money will travel. But in the same instance, I've met many a self-published author, an indie author out there that are very creative. Every author that has written a book has some form of creativity. It's tapping into that creative energy and becoming resourceful with what you have in front of you. Great example. I always love shouting her out. Susan Montgomery. She's an indie author based out of Bowling Green, Ohio. She is admittedly says, hey, I can't afford to run Amazon ads. I don't have enough money to do a BookBub featured deal. But what she does have is time and connections. And so what she's done is appeared on local podcasts, radio stations, news stations. She's even arranged appearances and collaborations with local businesses. This is something that's not requiring any of her money. All
Mm.
it's requiring is her time and putting herself in the right position at the right time. So don't find yourself in a position of saying, I need money to be successful, because that's just simply not true. Yeah, having it will make life a lot easier. I'm sure Susan would love to have, a $10,000 marketing budget to spend over the course of the next month, but she's working with what she has and she's maximizing the most out of the action she's doing. And guess what? She's doing some of her best PRs there, her personal records for selling books, because she keeps stacking that value. She's appearing in front of more and more and more people. She's collaborating with the right partners that are out there, and it's putting her in a very successful position. So I just challenge any other authors out there that instead of looking at the problem and saying, I can't do it, no, that, sure, you don't have the money, put it off to the side. That is totally fine. Focus on what you can do until you can eventually get to that position where you can invest. Now, remember, like I said, as soon as you start investing money in things, it is not a surefire thing. Sure, you can probably spend money, $1,000 per month on ads for your book, but it might bring back a big old fat goose egg because you don't know the system. You don't know the processes. The timing might not be right. Maybe you don't have some of your marketing best practices in place. There's so many things to kind of consider. So I would say for any authors out there is to, first of all, before you reach into your bank account or your pocketbook, think about, how can I put myself out there? How can I become more visible as an author, or how can I make my book more visible? Anyway, what's your thoughts on it, Tara? I don't want to completely dominate this conversation because I know you've seen your share of breakout successes.
Yeah, I mean, I think money loves being spent and can be very
Yeah.
easily spent. I really like that idea that you were saying about finding the local things or different areas where you can kind of highlight your book that makes sense. It made me try and think of, I guess, at the core, you really need to know how to market your book. Like, what is, I mean, not every book has to have that specific niche that will get you on like a local news or something, but knowing what makes your book stand out, I feel like that's probably the most important thing. And then you're learning how to sell that locally, within your community or whatever things you have that are available to you. But I think narrowing it down, and if you've already written a great blurb and everything, but yeah, making sure that you know what is your elevator pitch about this book, because that's really important. I don't know if you have any advice on authors about how to figure that out.
Figuring out that elevator pitch. Oh my gosh, that's first of all, it's understanding an elevator pitch and what that means. Because sometimes I
Mhm.
will say that to authors, be like, "Hey, give me your elevator pitch," and then 5 minutes later, I'm like, "That was a long elevator ride." So the whole point is to put together something that you can rattle off within 1 to 2 sentences, almost like you're in an elevator with somebody and you have very limited time. So the words that you choose need to be to the point, very clear, leaving no ambiguity whatsoever. And if that ambiguity lies there, it's only to coax or tease people to come over and see more information, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So understand your audience, understand your message. How do those two things correlate? Now, take it, break it down into a couple of sentences. There's your elevator pitch. It may not be perfect out the gate. You can probably just get with a few other authors and have them help you fine tune it. But I would say don't get it to where you have an elevator pitch that you feel like you have to robotically like pull a string out your rear end and go, rattle off. My book is a werebear shapeshifter book that's changed the lives of. No, relax. Just try to think how you could be able to deliver it in a natural, organic way. And it may not get right at first. You may not have it right at first. But here's a really cool thing. You're going to get some telltale signs of what people think of your book by just looking at your reviews. Your reviews are going to
Mm.
say, this book is like this book is like that. You could probably find your elevator pitch most times inside your reviews, especially if you got a good amount of them.
I always think looking at your comp to authors too, especially if you're publishing widely, the authors that are like on Kobo, it's sort of, if you like this author, you might like this author.
Yeah.
They're not the same on each platform, which I always find so interesting. So that might give you a little bit of insights into, okay, how is that person positioning their book or um, describing it, or what marketing are they doing for that title, and would my book sort of fit in, like could I replicate something? I always think that's good advice to look through your different comp to authors.
Sure. That's really good tips.
So I guess one big myth is that, to be a really successful indie, you should only publish on one platform and you shouldn't publish everywhere else, because what's the point?
Yeah.
But I know
Don't
that you're
bother. Some people
you're
are so nihilist, aren't they? They're just like, why bother?
but you're kind of an advocate for like wide publishing, and obviously here at Kobo we
Huge.
really encourage, like, so to publish widely, meaning that your books are available on all of the platforms, where anywhere where readers can purchase your work. So
Yeah.
why do you think that that's the best strategy for authors?
I wouldn't say it's the best strategy for all authors.
I was putting words in your mouth there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the best, but in my opinion, it's the best for me and for what I want, because I want to reach more readers. Yeah, the payday's nice, and sure, we can look at a certain company that requires exclusivity for them to shower more money on you potentially. But the problem is, I want more readers. The money will come. All I really am focused on is getting it out into the different retailers. So if there is a certain platform that is showering money upon you and it's making it worth your while to remain exclusive, that's fine. But let me go ahead and just put something just in perspective, that your book shouldn't just be an ebook. You should have numerous assets, being the paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. If you can get 4 iterations of your book, you're already head and shoulders miles ahead of a lot of indie authors because you've gone that extra mile to provide options for your readers. And in that, you're able to tap into a wider audience through each one of those publication types. So, for instance, again, out of respect to you, there's a certain platform that requires exclusivity. And that exclusivity only pertains to the ebook. It does not touch your print iterations. It does not touch your audiobook iterations. Now, same instance, there is an audiobook platform that requires exclusivity, and they pay you scraps more in order to be exclusive to them. And yeah, sure, you could probably go exclusive to them, but you are missing out on other areas, other places like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and stroke your ego here. Kobo Plus, Overdrive are just a few options. Overdrive reaches a bunch of, libraries. Are you kidding me? Sign me up. Put me in the libraries. Absolutely. Think about it from this aspect of wide publishing is about accessibility. It's okay if you want to remain beholden to a platform and you're like, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and keep this ebook, but don't disqualify or discredit what your other publication iterations can be able to do when they are accessible. Get them on out there. And to my knowledge, I don't think there's any print on demand company that requires exclusivity. Not to my knowledge. Mm-hmm. Sure, some of them share some type of overlap. Ingram Book Group's typically the thing that has overlap with a ton of different companies. But beyond that, there's nothing that requires exclusivity. So think about accessibility. That's what wide publishing is about. I wish I could just call it accessible publishing, but it's easier to say wide publishing. I think we can both agree that. Now, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, Richard has a comment here. Can you repeat what the 4 types of books here, just so we can really lay that out?
Sure. And don't limit yourself to these iterations either, because we can probably expand beyond these 4 ones. But I always think 4. All right. We've got, first of all, ebooks. And then I'm going to say print books, but underneath print books, we're just going to put paperbacks and hardcovers, because those are super easy to put together. If you are doing paperback, just go ahead and do the hardcover. It's just a little bit of extra work, but it's so worth it because you'll end up getting paid for it. And then audiobooks. So ebooks, paperbacks, hardcovers, and audiobooks. Now, bearing in mind, Kobo doesn't do print, but there are so many other folks out there that do print books that you can look into. You're only one Google search away, or just pop into my channel because I've covered every imaginable print-on-demand company there is.
Barb has a question here about why do you think hardcover is important?
Oh, people are still buying it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've heard sometimes where I think some people get really anecdotal and they just get in their own little bubble and like, nobody's buying print books. Are you kidding me? People are still very materialistic. People still want books, and there are still people that are buying hardcover editions. And it's only just slightly more work. Again, you have a cover design, the interior, the same interior that you use for your paperback, you can use for your hardcover. Job done right there. So the only thing you need to fix is going to be the cover design itself. There needs to be more bleed on a hardcover edition versus paperback. Now, I've thrown a word out there. My apologies. Bleed is essentially you're allowed to let some of the elements spill off the page, and it can be chopped off in the printing process so that there's no white from the paper left over. So, but all that to say this, though, yeah, try that hardcover edition, and don't let your own personal bias cloud this. So let me give you a good example, Tara, and you're going to love this. You're going to crack up laughing because when I broke into the business, the first book I published was hot trash. Let's just admit it here. But it was only through print. And this is 2014, mind you. And I have no fathomable clue what I'm talking about when I said that. I was like, nobody buys ebooks. Who's ever going to bother buying ebooks? I'm not putting this up as an ebook because I would never buy an ebook. Okay, well, first of all I read is ebooks now. I don't even do hardcover or paperback or anything else like that. And I was grossly wrong. It was 2014 at like the peak of the rush, like people coming into this business like crazy. So, yeah. So don't let your own personal bias say, oh, I wouldn't do audiobooks, or, oh, I wouldn't read ebooks, or, oh, I wouldn't do paperback, or Get those out there. Those options being available is going to make your life a little bit easier. And also, you're going to become a bit more discoverable because, well, you've got more product iterations. There's more windows into your brand, making you more discoverable.
Totally. I think that's the beautiful thing about publishing widely is that you just want to make sure if there's a reader out there that's interested in your book, that they can get it in however they want to read it. So that's, I
Exactly.
think, the great thing about it. And like you can see how the industry is changing, whereas like audio had a boom and then sort of fell down, but now it's going through a boom again because of the changes with like Spotify and everything, and then people are
Yep.
discovering them for the first time. So it's really interesting to be able to have your books available in those things. And so on Kobo Writing Life, we take the finished product. So if you have an audiobook that you can distribute, you can publish that with us. And the same with the ebook, and not print, as we're just sort of like a digital only company. Maybe one day in the future, but probably, I don't know. This isn't live or going out to the world or anything, is it? But
Right.
but no, for
Put me on the
now.
spot.
But
I
I
asked
do
you at an
like
interview a number of years ago. I remember asking you, and you're like, "No, we're not." You came to maybe now, so I'm getting
no.
hopeful over here.
I don't think so. I only say
Yeah.
that from being the indie perspective of
Yeah.
like print is just so huge for indies right now. So I do
Yeah.
think that indie authors should take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
And especially with the rise of like TikTok, and people just love to display their beautiful books and
Yep.
having all the different options. I've just forgotten the name of it. The sprayed edges. That's it. Like those
Oh
are the
gosh,
big
sprayed edges.
trends. Like, yes.
It makes it special when you have sprayed edges
It
and you
really
have a jacket
does.
on a good hardcover book, man. It gives you the feels, man.
It really does. And like those print on demand books are just, the quality is so good. Like,
Oh
so if
yeah,
you're an indie, I would definitely, like, who wouldn't want to hold a beautiful copy of something they've written? Yeah.
exactly.
But I'm getting on a tangent now on print books. But
Yep.
so let's kind of go again back to some, I think, myths around like indie
Mhm.
publishing, and something that I think that must be really challenging for new authors is kind of like the self-doubt that comes with it, or maybe like a fear of rejection, that can obviously or that can maybe have come from like traditional publishing, or the idea of like that gatekeeping that isn't there while you're indie publishing. But
Yeah.
when you're doing it on your own, you really do have to have that strong belief in your work and in what you're doing.
Mhm.
So do you have any advice on how authors can kind of overcome any self-doubt?
Man, I tell you, I've been doing this for 11 years and I still have doubts about myself. I still will launch something and I will have scores of reviews and even beta readers and ARC readers that will tell me it's fantastic. And I still have that feeling. It's called imposter syndrome. Some people will, feel like, oh, well, I'm not worth it, or, oh, my message isn't as good as I would like it to be. Welcome to the club. If you're feeling doubtful about yourself. Now, to overcome something like that is you need to attach your why to why you're doing this. What is your purpose? What are you getting out of this? What is the ultimate goal? Is it to have your book appear on a shelf in Barnes and Noble? Is it to just simply scratch an itch? Is it to do a full-time living? What does that look like? What's going to drive you forward? I always think about my why. My biggest why is to be able to live life on my own terms so I could be able to spend time with my wife and my two cats. That's my life. And I don't want to ever have that interrupted. And that purpose always drives me forward. No matter how tough things get for me as an author, I always think about, why am I doing this? And then I really try to anchor myself to that. And no matter how hard it gets, I always say to myself, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this so I don't have to be shackled to a 9-to-5 job, have to answer to a boss. That doesn't need to be your purpose. I want you to think about your purpose and what's going to drive you forward. If you feel underconfident about your work, get some outside opinions. There's a lot of instances, like if you're feeling self-conscious and saying, oh gosh, I don't know if my book's worth a darn. Well, go to your peers, find another author, especially bonus points if you can find an author in your niche, because then they'll be able to give you even additional insights that you can be able to apply in your writing. So try to look outside yourself as well, because sometimes you need that little bit of extra validation to kind of, that extra pep in your step, or even the kick in the pants that you need to kind of get going. Because you might be pretty good. I've got a good friend of mine, and I'm just going to say his name, may or may not be this, is Andy. Andy is a wonderful writer. Oh my gosh, I told him this a number of years ago, and he kind of blushed and thought I was just, stroking his ego. No, he is a great frigging writer. And he was further proof when he was able to launch the book. And I was like, I told you so. Look at the reviews. They're saying the same thing I did. You're great at what you do. So it happens. Just don't let yourself don't stall out what you should be doing. Don't stop what you could be giving the world. You could make a massively positive impact with the publication that you put out, whether it be fiction or nonfiction. There's somebody out there in the world that is waiting for you to change their life. All it's going to be is up to you is to get out of your own way, put that book out on the market so that way they can be able to have access to that.
I think that's wonderful advice to think about the why. I always like to also remind authors that a lot of people talk about writing books. Not a lot of people actually do it. So
Yeah.
if you do it at all like that, I think that is such an accomplishment. And one of my favorite things about working in this industry is really the sense of community that is there. It's, I mean, there's definitely, healthy rivalries or competitiveness, but for the most part it's really a community that builds each other up and like really wants to help. Like, this is how I found success on Kobo, so you should try it too. So I think really leaning on the community, if you can find that, is very helpful. And you've generated such a great space for that community too, Dale, and like your channels and the work that you do.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's one of the things I try to encourage people is don't try to do this alone. It's such a solitary business as it is. I mean, unless you're co-authoring with somebody, but even then it's not like the two of you are sitting at the same keyboard, although that would be really weird. You can be the left hand, Tara. I'll be the right hand. There we go. That's how we're going to co-author our next book.
Okay. Our next one, like there's some secret first one out there in the world.
Yeah, exactly. That's when we type that with the mental telepathy is what we did.
Exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit about social media and like what role do you think it really plays in an indie author's success? And I was trying to think of like a myth around this, I guess, is if you're going the traditional route or doing certain things that you don't need social media. So it's only needed for indie authors. What are your thoughts about this and social in general in this ever-changing internet world that we live in?
I'm going to say a rather hot take on this one right here. You don't need social media. You don't.
Ooh.
You don't. It's nice to have. It is nice to have. To me, I think the things that you need are going to be great marketable books and at least an email list. Mm-hmm. Having those two things in place is at least going to safeguard your business. Now, social media is a nice thing to have. Now, what I would recommend in most instances, if you're looking into social media to go and just sell books, you might be in for a real hard, long road ahead of you. It's going to take some time. What I would say is look at social media as a way to, first of all, make yourself visible. And the next thing is to build community. If you can get it to where you're connecting with more people online and gathering in a safe space where you can communicate about what it is your niche is or what your books are about, that is where it's going to win. You really want to have 1,000 raving fans all in one spot, rallying behind you and getting behind each one of your publications when you get ready to launch. So look at social media as that. Now, I did say there were exceptions to the rule because, I mean, you brought up a good one. I mean, TikTok, you got Book Talk over there. So some people are just, and I've seen some of these videos. They're absolutely just tremendously horrible. They're bad. But the funny thing is they're doing well. They're selling books. I don't care how. Like, you know what? Smear some, poop on a page and put it up there. If it sells me 5,000 books in the next 5 minutes, sign me up. But I just want to kind of temper your expectations with reality, folks, that a lot of instances with those things like the TikToks and YouTube and things like that, a lot of the breakthrough success came from them showing up consistently over a prolonged period of time, delivering some type of value. And it wasn't just, well, I just lucked out. I put up a video and now I'm making millions from this one video. No, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. I'm somewhere about 120,000 subscribers over on YouTube. That has been very beneficial to help selling books. Ain't going to lie to you. But I've been working on it for 9.5 years. It's been a long time, but I focused on that long game. I thought about how could I be able to serve my community? How could I better serve my ideal reader in a way that gets them to where they feel empowered and also feel like, oh, Dale's providing value. And so instantly when someone thinks about, oh, I'm thinking about getting into self-publishing. Oh my gosh, there's this dude. First of all, he's a spaz. He wears an orange shirt and he's got a shiny bald head. And every now and then he calls himself Uncle Dale. Like, yeah, great. That's fantastic. That's one of the greatest parts about social media. So remember, take those two words. Let's just dissect them for just a second. Social. Put the social aspect into social media. Communicate, connect with people, and don't do it like this where you're like, here's my book, buy it. Like, no, don't do that. No one wants that. That's not social. Think about this, Tara. If you and I were just like walking along and some random person came up there and stuffed a book on our face and says, buy my book, what are we going to do? We're probably going to scatter and go, what's going on? Do I need to call the cops here? Like, yeah. So think about being of value. And then when it comes, the time is right, you'll be able to share your publication, or they will just know instantly, oh, this is author. He does Werebear Shapeshifter books. He is phenomenal. I saw him over on X. I'm going to go buy one of his books, and I think you should too.
We have a question from Peter here. Yeah. What about faceless social media for a socially awkward introvert that definitely isn't Peter?
Absolutely. Totally not Peter with the 3 R's. Tremendous. That comment made my morning here. Yeah, there are so many opportunities to do faceless. I actually had a conversation with a gentleman. His name's Marvin Way of a company called authorscale.com, and part of their business practice is they put together short slideshow video reels that they post on TikTok, and they'll do about 3 to 4 of these per day. And it essentially, by having that much volume and putting it on there, first of all, it's easy because they're not having to show their face. Shoot, in some instances, they're using even like the digital narration for that, and in some instances, they're not even doing any digital narration. They're just putting the text on there in these slideshows, and they are selling books. So that is one way of doing it. YouTube as well. There are many people out there that don't need to be on camera. And one thing I would say is, Peter, if you don't feel comfortable on camera, I totally understand. This is something that's not for everybody. Some people just feel self-conscious. They might be, oh gosh, there's a pimple on my head. And there's something between my teeth. Oh, did I have a booger on my nose? I totally get it. I don't want you freaking out or having high anxiety. But I will tell you this, Peter, that if you were to just practice on your own. This is something I recommend to folks. If like you're looking at it and going, I don't know, but if you're saying, I don't know, but Peter, consider this. Just turn on a camera and record yourself. It's just for you. I want you to pretend almost like it's your journaling, like you've got a book that you normally journal in. You don't worry about it because it's only for you. So the same thing would be is just to get that phone camera out, or if you get a webcam or something else like that, put it out, shoot it, just start talking into it. And if you do that enough times, you're going to find that you're going to be a lot braver about showing up every single time. This was a practice I think I picked up actually from my pro wrestling days. And one of the things I was taught was to really believe in what you're speaking is to put yourself in front of a mirror. And when you can be able to convince yourself in a mirror that what you're saying is of truth, then you're on the right track. So the same thing could be said is get yourself in front of that camera, show up time and time again. And I'm telling you, you're not going to be nervous about it anymore. Now, I will tell you though, Peter, I am an introvert. And for me personally, sometimes after these live broadcasts or when I'm done shooting a video, I need about 15 to 20 minutes to kind of just gather my thoughts, take a deep breath, maybe change shirts if I'm sweating profusely. But usually I need to kind of decompress after something like this. So just consider that, Peter, if you do ever go on camera, but please don't ever feel like it's Uncle Dale's over here telling you that you got to get on camera. You need to do that eventually. You're going to find that you're going to get way less friction when people can see the whites of your eyes, because there's going to be some trust factor, but it's not the end of the world if you can't do that.
Can't believe you just casually drop in your pro wrestling days as if but now I have to continue asking you non-wrestling related questions.
Just look up Sweet Lou Roberts if you're ever curious. Last time I wrestled was in 2011, so it's been a long time.
All right. Okay. Let's move on because otherwise that's all I want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to say as well, one of the things that I think like a little bit of a myth around social media is that people have to be on everything as well. I mean, you've sort of said that you don't actually need to be on. I do agree with you. The email mailing list is really important.
Yeah.
Probably having a website doesn't hurt. Like you should have a website where you're selling as well, probably.
Yep.
But I think if you do want to go the social media route, pick the one that you enjoy. People kind of can pick up on it if you're not really into it. There has to be a little bit of an authenticity and then get more comfortable so you can try things out, see if you like them. I think it's good advice to sort of try and convince yourself first, like talking to yourself in the mirror. And Tanisha says she agrees with you as well. After a full day conference with people, she needs to sleep for a solid 12 hours because it can be very draining. So knowing yourself and where your line is and how you recharge, I think is really important as well, because you want to keep the energy for writing more books.
Shout out to Tanisha, by the way. I recognize her. She's been one of my ARC readers before. Thank you, Tanisha. I appreciate it.
Nice. All right. And what was I going to ask you? Yeah. So you're on your channel, which is so huge. And as you've been working on it for like 9.5 years now. So you've interviewed, I dare say, nearly all of the industry experts within indie publishing on all of the key platforms. Yeah. Like you're always chatting to people in this industry.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering a couple of questions. So one, is there any sort of like through line or similarities that you see from these interviews, and maybe what's been your biggest takeaway?
Ooh, man. That's almost like saying summarize what you've done over the last 9 years. Unfortunately, I think the common thread that I see among experts, and here's a great way to kind of put it. I actually used to end all of my interviews, and I did this one with you because you were on my podcast at one point or another. I said, what advice do you have for aspiring authors and self-publishers? And predominantly, most of the answers circled around never giving up and always believing in your work. That wasn't always the answer, but usually it came back to that is do the work, believe in it, and show up, and you're going to find success is going to follow you. So that's the biggest one that I just see, the common thread. And you're not wrong. Actually, last time I counted, it's been a couple of years. It was about 150 interviews. So 150 different people. So it's had the privilege. And here's the really cool thing, Tara, and I don't think enough people will actually ever notice this is it's almost like getting free coaching. I just get all these experts that come on over and I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask them all these questions because this is exactly what I want to learn. And I want people to learn along with me. And so that's been the fun thing, but it's always super encouraging to hear a lot of these experts kind of aligning with one common theme of just don't ever give up on yourself, believe in your work, and the success will come.
Nice. That's so nice. And to stay with our theme around sort of maybe people that are new to the industry, say if an author wanted to be a guest on a podcast or to do an interview, do you have any advice for somebody that hasn't been interviewed before?
Ooh, man. I will tell you this, that podcasts are always looking for guests. Always looking for guests. There's some of them that aren't. Like, for instance, please don't send any applications to mine. I've got interviews on indefinite hold, so I'm not accepting any more applications, but there are tons of other ones. So one of the easiest ways to do this is, what podcast do you like listening to? Think about that. Write down a list of those podcasts. If you don't know any podcasts, guess what? Google's your friend, or DuckDuckGo. I don't care what search engine you use. Go ahead and search up whatever your niche is. Let's say it's Werebear Shapeshifter Romance podcast, or Werebear podcast, or whatever your niche might be, and podcast, and search those things up. And here's the thing is, I don't want you to just look these things up and then just start cold prospecting for these ones. Actually listen to them. Listen to them. Because one, you're going to filter out some of the undesirables. There's going to be some podcasts you don't even want to touch. Also, the other thing is, you're looking at it is, do I want to associate myself with this podcast brand? Because if this person was saying some rather incendiary comments in previous podcasts and you just show up along the way, guess what? You're going to be collateral damage. And also, let's be honest, not all podcasts is going to be worth being on. There are times, oh gosh, Tara, can I tell you, there was one time I was a guest on a podcast, and bless their heart. I think you know what that means in the South. Bless their heart. They tried. They had me on their podcast, and every time they asked me a question, I would go to answer and they would cut me off and finish the answer. And then at the very end of the podcast, the person had the audacity to say, "Do you have any questions for me?" No, you've already answered my questions. Why would I ask you questions? If I had done my due diligence, if I had went and listened to her podcast, I would have heard that every single episode prior to mine were train wrecks. And so make sure that you're definitely vetting them. Now, here's a great resource. I'm not being paid to say this. And in fact, I'm going to tell you to use the free version only. Podcastguests.com. They send out a twice per week email on Mondays and Thursdays. You'll have that land in your inbox. It's going to show guests that need podcasts and podcasts that need guests. Typically, it's up to about 10 podcasts per, and it's always revolving. So every single newsletter, you're going to see a new one. I would recommend as soon as that email hits your inbox, here's a really quick, fast tip you can use. Control F to search and type in author. And then just hit find. If there's nothing there, toss the email out, move on with your life. If there is, you go on down, see if that's going to be a good fit. And at that point, I'm going to tell you, I've had dozens of interviews from podcast guests over the years, and I don't pay a single dime for their upgraded service. And I did it at one point and I didn't see any difference, so I just stuck with it. So that's probably going to be the one thing. And also just find where your readers are congregating. Where are they congregating? Is it a YouTube channel? Is it a TikToker? Try to get in touch with whoever that YouTuber or TikToker is and see if there is a collaborative opportunity, be it an interview or even like a fun video together that you can do, something like what Tara and I are doing here right now.
Yeah, or even like a little newsletter swap or something. It doesn't always have to be like something like that. But I think learning how to do, I don't know if you think this is the case, Dale, but it's always easier to be the person that is being interviewed than the asker of the questions. So I would always just say to relax and try and be yourself if you're on an interview for the first time, and yeah, let them lead you.
Yeah, it's so funny. Actually, I'm gonna tap on something onto yours as well. Is if you are a shy person on camera, becoming an interviewer sometimes is the best thing, because then you start to learn how to carry yourself and how to be professional. I always tell people whenever I do interviews, I'm like, it's 80-20. You're going to talk 80% of the time as my guest. I'm going to probably talk 20%, if not less, because I want to make sure that you have more time, because it's kind of like that Oprah effect. Oprah brings in the guests and such like that. And everybody's like, yay, Oprah. Like, she didn't do anything other than bring guests on the show. What are you doing? Like, that's the same instance. So if you ever want to get into interviews and get really good at it, try hosting. It's incredible, because all you got to do is just ask the questions, sit back, relax, and then just take notes on how people speak and carry themselves. And you're going to adapt whatever that is, and you'll become a better speaker and interviewee.
Have you got any? I'm trying to think now before I share. Like, I remember the first podcast that I did. This is, I guess, a tip from a mistake that I learned from a mistake I made. But the very first one that I did, it was on Zoom, and it wasn't being recorded, so it was just audio. But at the end of the interview, I left the meeting instead of like them just, they stopped recording and I was just gone, and I was like, oh, that was very abrupt. And I emailed them being like, I'm so sorry. I just we said goodbye and then I left, and they were like, it's fine. But I learned that you say goodbye to the recording and then you can still stay and have a little chat afterwards. So that's my top tip.
I've done that so many times before, Tar, where I believe, so usually before I go into the whole recording of a session, I say, are we done after this? And they'll typically say, oh yeah, you can go ahead and disconnect, or we'll debrief right afterwards. And most times when you're doing interviews like this, you usually, like, I'm sure Tara and I are going to disconnect here from the live feed, say something in a couple minutes, and then we'll go ahead and peace out. But yeah, don't just bail on them. Reminds me of my brother. My brother's like a movie like villain. You'll be talking to him on the phone, and instead of saying like goodbye, he just straight up just hangs up. I'm like, what This isn't a book or a movie, man. You can at least be polite enough to say goodbye.
It's cold. It's a cold way to end things.
It is. It
Also, when
is.
you're in an interview, you're kind of left being like, "Was that okay?" Like, so it's nice to have a little, just like, and you're building those relationships, which is essentially, you're trying to build genuine connections with people over time. So it's good to have a little off camera or off recording chat afterwards. But I still laugh about that, where I'm just like, oh yeah, I just like pieced out of that meeting. So as we're sort of winding down here, is there any other questions from the chat? You can drop them in. But I'm kind of curious if there's something that you thought or that you wish you had known at the beginning. So the first one was the importance of ebooks. I'm going to put that in your mouth. But is there anything around like indie publishing or anything that you sort of would have wished that somebody had told you when you were getting started?
I wish someone would have told me that you won't know it all ever. You will, it's a learning thing. In fact, I can even bring up someone, the founder of Kobo Writing Life, Mark Leslie Lefebvre.
Mm-hmm.
The man went and got a degree with a specialty in publishing. What you just founded a company. Why'd you go get a degree? And he said something rather profound, and I'll paraphrase him. I was just like, dude, that's just crazy. And he was just like, I just never want to stop learning. I always want to keep learning, and I want to be able to apply those things and learn even more. And that's so admirable. I think that's just a beautiful thing. And when I saw that a couple of years ago when he got his degree, I thought, I don't know Jack, because Mark knows 10 times more than me on a bad day and my best day. So I just realized that I'm just always going to continue to learn. I'm always going to be a student of the game. I'm going to make mistakes along the way. And hopefully I'll share some of those mistakes and people miss those potholes and become more successful than I could ever imagine.
Yeah, I think having a curiosity for things is such an important trait. And it helps you to not stay so, or not to stay. I think it reduces becoming jaded with anything, because you're admitting that you don't know everything and you're going to be curious about things. And as I mentioned, this industry changes so quickly that we're all learning, and that can be overwhelming in itself. But so you can pick and choose what you would like to learn and then maybe lean into it. But I think that's why the community is so important. And Tanisha said here that, yeah, loves collaborating with people who love to learn and to stay curious.
For sure.
Is there anything you're learning right now, Dale? Not immediate. I mean, in life in general.
Yeah. What am I learning here?
From this conversation?
Like I said, just being receptive and being open and understanding that, you don't know everything. That's just the main thing, like right now.
Mm-hmm. Peter's asking, what would be your number one? If you don't do anything else, you should do this.
Other than write the dang book. Yeah. Email marketing. Email, 100%. Don't overcomplicate it, folks. Don't like think that you have to have Jedi mind tricks and such like that to get your readers to sign up for your email list. And don't think that you have to have the perfect email message to send out a broadcast to them. If it's with intention and with purpose and also is serving the greater good for them, broadcast it. Send out at least one email per month, at least one email. So that way it keeps you relevant in front of mind of each one of your readers. But email marketing is it. There's so many email marketing platforms between the MailerLites and the ConvertKit, aka Kit or MailChimp. There's even simple services out there, Author Letter, that's specifically intended for email marketing for authors. And they made it like dead simple. Like, and I'm not being paid to say this, like their idea of email marketing is let's just make it as stripped down and as easy as possible so authors aren't have to bang their head against the wall figuring out APIs and other acronyms that they have no idea what it stands for in the end. So there are so many options out there. Just do yourself the favor of starting the email list now if you haven't. If you have and you've been sitting on it, send out your first broadcast. I've given you permission. Send out that broadcast, share what you're doing, share the book that's relevant that you're reading that maybe ties into your current book, share a review, maybe even a bad review. Just do any of those number of things, but make sure that you get that email list going and communicate with them regularly. That's the biggest tip I'm going to tell you.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great. Do you think, you already gave us some examples of things that people could put into the email, but is length important at all, or is it just consistency?
It's going to take a lot of trial and error, because there are going to come times where, for instance, a good long form email it will be the best way for you to communicate a point. So just experiment with those types of things. And a lot of platforms will have a split testing feature where you can do a different body of content. You can try to do some short form, and then you can try to do long form and see which one leads to a click. If it's a short form one that leads to a click, great. Get that long form stuff and host it on over on your site instead. Because the whole thing is make sure that you're keeping these people in your ecosystem and they're consuming content and they're happy with what they're doing and they're coming back for more.
Yeah, I guess the testing is something that can maybe seem a bit complicated, but it can be worthwhile. You can even test like the subject lines and things like that, because
Yeah.
that can be tough. I guess it's kind of like coming up with the title for your book, trying to summarize your like newsletter.
Yep.
Would you recommend having something specific versus like Tara's July update?
Oh yeah, yeah. You definitely want to be a little less generic about what your subject lines are going to be in emails. It's so funny. I'm right now in the midst of editing my book, Email Marketing for Authors, so I feel like I'm repeating
Oh, well, there
myself.
we go.
Where was I going? I'm sorry. What was the initial
Oh,
question?
the subject line. Sorry.
So the subject line is absolutely critical, because if you're just putting some generic type thing, guess what? You're just gonna fall into the slush pile that's inside everybody's email inboxes. You absolutely need to say something that's going to hook somebody, that's going to grab their attention. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to figure out what is that? What's that hook going to be? I would recommend that you subscribe to other authors, especially authors that are, comparable inside your space, and pay attention to what they're doing. Pay attention to how you interact with that email too, as well. Because let's say, for instance, Tara, her email goes out today. Yeah, I look inside the email inbox. Oh, Tara's July update. I might sit there and go like this. Oh, that is a reaction. Why did I feel that way? It wasn't compelling enough. But let's say Tara sends me one and she's got this hot headline, be like, free stuff inside. Oh, we probably shouldn't do the spammy layer of things. But let's say it's not spammy and it's not clickbait. And I go ahead and click on that and I read it and you've delivered value. Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up your next email newsletter, and I'm going to open up the next one, and I'm going to open up the next one, because you are coming and delivering the great value in there.
Tanisha is saying that she fought segmentation for a long time, but after she did that everything started performing better. The open
Crazy,
rates,
right?
engagements, click-throughs. Yeah.
Segmentation is super important. I learned, though, oftentimes, though, there are sometimes with segmentation, you can break the rules. You could break the rules every now and then if you want to go ahead and send out a broadcast to everybody on your list, great. But if you want more engagement and better open rates, click-through rates, segmentation is definitely going to be pretty important, because now you're going to see better open rates, better click rates, less unsubscribes, less spam complaint rates, less bounces, hopefully. That one you can't really control. But yeah, focus on those analytics. Never let those go off the side, because that can really affect your sender reputation. Now, sender reputation is how a lot of email services like Yahoo or Gmail or any of the others like that will determine whether you're going to land in the inbox, a promotions folder, or gasp, the spam folder, which nobody wants to be in that spam folder. So in order to keep that sender reputation up, Tanisha nails it right there. Segmentation is the way to go, because now you are sending an email broadcast to somebody who absolutely does want to hear from you and aren't in the middle of, say, your automation.
That's really good advice. When is your book going to be finished and available?
Oddly enough, and this turns my stomach just thinking about it, in about another 2 weeks. So we're
Oh,
looking at August
wow.
15th launch date. The cover should be coming through anytime now. I should be able to finish up the rest of the edits today, and we just got to get that expedited over to Mibleart to format the interior, because I hate it formatting interiors. I would rather watch paint dry.
That's the great thing about being an indie, right? You get to lean into the things that you want to do, and then you can just, hire somebody to do the things that you don't want to do.
That's it. And hey, folks, I don't want anybody out there to think that I haven't paid my dues and formatted quite a few books before. I've done it before. I can do it. But oh Lord, literally, I literally would rather watch paint dry. I am being 100% serious. I will watch paint dry over doing formatting interiors. But I'm rabbit trailing. My apologies.
I think focusing on the email marketing is definitely something that authors should consider at the beginning, like you said, to build up that mailing list sooner than later. And before we sort of, maybe this is too big a question for 5 minutes left, but are there any other low cost marketing tactics that indies could use to implement to kind of boost sales now?
Oh goodness, boy, we've dropped some serious nuggets here between Susan's story. We've
Hmm.
talked a little bit about social media. We've hit on email marketing. What I would say is one of the best ways to find out what's working is ask around. And we've already kind of said this to a certain extent, but connect with other network and connect with other authors in your space. Again, it's even better if you can be able to network with authors that are in your genre, but just networking with other authors also helps you understand what's going on in the landscape and staying in tune with what's happening, what's working, what's not working, what's available to you. I wouldn't have known about this whole slide show thing there through author scale as I had mentioned if he hadn't reached out. But then I saw that this was an amazing like marketing tactic. I was like, that's actually kind of cool. You're putting a ton of volume in here, and one of them is going to hit in some capacity. So I was like, yeah. So it's going out there and just studying what other people are doing. Plug into other podcasts too as well. I love listening to podcasts. A few of my favorites are Indie Writers Club. There's Sell More Book Show. I think Kobo Writing Life's got one as well.
Sure
Um,
do.
so there are a number of podcasts. Plug into those. Don't feel beholden to any one of them because remember, you don't want to get all of your information and news from just a single source. You want to get it from as many as possible because I can assure you that I am not able to cover every little aspect of the self-publishing business. And there's sometimes where people are like, I only listen to you, Dale. You probably shouldn't do that. I mean, I love it. It's a great stroke on my ego, but I think that is a recipe for disaster because you're limiting what you are bringing in. And to me, I think that you're going to bring in so much more if you keep yourself receptive to what all is out there, whether you agree or disagree with it. Because I know there's the divisive topic of AI, and I don't want to get started on that because that's another 2-hour program right there.
Right.
But I mean, think about some of those other tools and aspects of this business. And if you just keep yourself open to those things, I think you're going to find you're going to flourish in this business.
Nice. And you are going to be at Author Nation. We were talking about this beforehand,
Yes.
engaging with the community, which, if people aren't familiar, is in Vegas in November, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
November 3rd to 7th.
Nice.
3rd to 7th? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think.
Yes, 3rd to 7th, the first week of November.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you have coming up in person that you're excited about?
No, really at this point, I'm focused on getting the book launch here in August. And then I've got a Kickstarter campaign coming up here on September the 9th, where I'll be releasing a exclusive gold foil special edition box set of all 12 of my books in the Self-Publishing with Dale series. And 3 of the final books is not going to be released until 2026. So the only way people will be able to get those 3 books is through the Kickstarter campaign. So I am nervous, like so much so where I almost feel sick sometimes, where I'm like, oh, but I've been assured by the team over the Influence that it's going to be a successful Kickstarter and people are going to love it. I've already heard some early feedback from some of the viewers, and they're saying, oh, they can't wait for this. So I'm reassured, but it's just right around the corner. I'm just about ready to bite my nails down to the nubs.
The gold foil sounds so nice. Have you, like, I can't wait for you to get your hands on them and see. Like,
I'm looking forward to it. I've done gold foil through paperback before, but never hardcover. So
mhm.
I'm kind of tickled to death to see this new version of it. And not to mention the fact that the final 3 books are going to be the second edition of 3 of the books that I've done in the Amazon Self-Publisher series. I'm just removing the Amazon branding and I'm rewriting and revising those books so that way they're more current and up to date. So that part I'm very thrilled about. But yeah, having the book and sprayed edges too. Come on. Who doesn't love sprayed edges? We've already I think we bookended it. Didn't we start out with sprayed edges? Now we're back over to sprayed edges. So it was a perfect
Yeah,
full circle.
I know. And book ended, just really tying the book theme to everything
There you
throughout.
go.
Well, what else is coming up for you? I know that is a lot that you're doing, but is there
Yeah.
anything else that you'd like to share before we sign off? And where can viewers find you online if they're not familiar?
No, I'm just getting prepared for a big, massive pivot over into fiction. As soon as this Kickstarter campaign is done and off my plate, I plan on starting to write full time in fiction. I'm excited about that. I'll be doing sci-fi horror.
Nice.
So if you're interested in that, you can always just look out for Dale Lewis Roberts. But in the meantime, if you're interested about writing and self-publishing in general, all you got to do is just search up Dale L. Roberts over on YouTube or online, and you'll be able to find all the content that I have provided over the years. Gosh darn, I think it's almost 2,000 videos between 2 channels, so it's a lot.
And now I know what the L stands for. So it's a successful interview. I think we've busted some myths and I've revealed some secrets.
Yeah, there you go. The pro wrestling, the middle name stands for Lewis. What's next? I actually had long hair at one point too. There you
Oh,
go.
wow.
We did the
Wow.
trifecta. We did
We
the
did.
trifecta. That's not even a joke. I did have long hair.
I'm going to need to see some evidence of this.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. And we will be back again soon. And Dale, I'd love to chat to you again anytime.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.